the schools, we often talk about the homeschool linkages and the family engagement pieces. And lots of creative things are going on with homeschool linkages. A fair amount of home visitation is going on now. Okay, initially, home visitation was mostly in early childhood. David Old's home visiting program got to get a lot of attention. But now there are lots of schools where school-age kids are getting home visits. And it might not always be at home. It might be at the Dunkin' Donuts at the corner. But one way or another, outside of school, parents are sitting down sometimes with two teachers who go out as a team to start building that bond with the family, right? With the parenting piece, there are a few different basic ideas we want to get in the picture. As I mentioned, there's evidence that gaps are in place by age 2. They're not very much in evidence at age 1. So it looks like folks from different backgrounds are born not that much difference, at least in any way you can measure. Age 1, there's some small differences, but not much. By age 2, the differences are stark. And we think it's got to do with early childhood lived experiences. Okay. And a theme for the whole talk we're having is we want to shape kids' lived experiences from birth from cradle to career. We want their lived experiences to be optimally developmental to prepare them to thrive. Right? We have the project we call Seeding Success, operating out of the Achievement Gap Initiative. We held another 2-day conference, pulled together researchers from around the country who do child development and so on, asked them, what do you know that the world needs to know about raising kids? We distilled from that what we call the fundamental 5 early childhood caregiving practices. And these are ideas that we need to get out not only to parents, but to people who influence parents. Mothers get most of their advice when they're new mothers. They get most of their advice from their mothers and their mothers-in-law. So we need to reach grandma. Okay? And we need to be sure grandma has access to the most up-to-date, high-quality ideas of what caregiving should look like for infants and toddlers. We have a little booklet that we're almost done with, one that's for toddlers, one that's for infants, that are built around these fundamental 5. One, maximize love, minimize stress is number 1. We want people to know what the various ways to express love to an infant or a toddler, the various ways to help an infant or toddler feel loved and secure. It's not that parents don't have a lot of these things, they already do some of them, but be more conscious about it and do more of it on purpose. Right? What stress looks like, a baby laying wet and hungry for a while, it's just stressful. There's something called toxic stress. It's brain chemicals that undermine brain development even, if it gets too bad. Right? The minimizing stress also contributes to the development of executive function skills that I was talking about a while ago. Being in a household where people are angry and arguing a lot can be stressful to an infant or a toddler. Raising people's consciousness about the need to shield the toddler and infant from that. Some people say, well, if people are totally stressed out and they're in poverty and they got all these kinds of things that they can't manage, you can't expect them to pay attention to stuff like this. They're overwhelmed. My answer is let them decide. At least give them access. Let them decide if they're so overwhelmed they can't use it. Okay? And sometimes they might be, which means they need more support. Right? And so we need to mobilize community resources to supply the resources and the supports that families who are overwhelmed need. Okay. But I grew up in neighborhoods where people didn't have a whole lot of resources, but they weren't so overwhelmed they couldn't use a little advice on what to do with their infants and toddlers. Right? Then talk, sing, and point. Really interesting research on gesturing. How establishing eye contact with an infant and pointing what you're talking about accelerates comprehension. Okay. Gesturing is a language I use, but it's basically just pointing. Research out of the University of Chicago. That's it. And talk, sing, and point. Babies are encoding language prenatal. They come out of the womb already having gotten tuned in a bit. There's a TED Talk that compares the cry, the whimper of German versus French babies. Okay? One has a whimper that ends in a little uptick, and the other has a whimper that ends in a little downtick. Okay? Babies come out of the womb preferring the taste of the foods that their mothers ate during pregnancy. So we can think of babies as visitors in a foreign country. They're trying to decode the language, right? And you come into the world, you're hearing these sounds, you don't quite know what they mean, they're coming in and out, and if people are talking gibberish and baby talk, that doesn't help, right? And so the idea is you want to talk real talk from the beginning, maybe some baby talk, but they're encoding those sounds. And they like high-pitched kind of sing-songy, but you can do high-pitched sing-songy with real words. It doesn't have to be nonsense, right? And also, a lot of people for whom English is a second language, they're afraid to talk to their babies. They're afraid that talking Spanish or Creole to an infant will interfere with their learning English. And we need to get the word with them that it will not. And that you need to speak to the infant a lot, no matter what your home language is. Because there are basic patterns in human language that they're picking up that will facilitate their language acquisition. Okay? So the things like that, we just need to get the word out to parents. Then we have group count and compare. It's a major intellectual breakthrough for a toddler to realize that numbers correspond to groups of things. It's 2 of something. It's 3 of something. The little games you can play that will help accelerate that intuition. And once they have that intuition, the world makes more sense. Okay? The third, explore through movement. Develop the mind's eye. Imagine a 15-month-old crawling around an apartment, mentally mapping the apartment. Remembering where she left her toy on the other side of the furniture that she can't see right now. Okay? The brain architecture that helps do that mental mapping will later be useful for mathematics and athletics, and even handwriting that involves visual motor integration. Okay? And then finally, don't just read. Read and discuss. So as soon as the child can give you some feedback, have a discussion. Remember, explain, anticipate. Could be a mnemonic. Okay? So we're gearing up to saturate communities with these 5 things. Ministers giving sermons, pediatricians during well baby visits, pamphlets on the counter at the grocery store, posters on the wall at the laundromat, employers putting together clubs in the sites where people who have new babies, every new mother in a community while she's before she's delivered, getting some material, having some things to talk about, getting connected to 10 other new mothers in the community who can stay in touch with one another and talk about what they're doing and bounce off of the fundamental 5. The foundations of agency, really early on. Stop the gaps from opening before they start, to the degree we can. Because we do have evidence that across race and socioeconomic lines, kids' lived experiences from birth are different in these dimensions. And if we go at it respectfully, families are thankful. They thank you for telling them this stuff.